It's time to wrap up the show by talking a little college football with our burning questions. We're in week 5 of the college football season. We're going to break down the biggest games here in the state by answering some burning questions. Pickle, what are we starting with?
How about we start with our small school game of the week? What percentage chance do you give Stephen F. Austin to knock off the #1 team in the nation in Sam Houston? That's 4 p.m. on Saturday.
So we just talked with Corey Hogue, our college football insider, about this, our small college football insider about this. And I tend to agree with him that I think this game's really close. It's razor thin margin. And even though Sam Houston is the understandable #1 team in the nation, I think they can be beat. And I think that the way that Colby Carthel has this SFA team rolling right now, there's every reason to believe that they can challenge them. The offense with Trey Self and company has kind of stepped up in a way that, for Sam Houston, their defense, I think, is still a work in progress a little bit. But the question for SFA is going to be stops. Can they come up with stops against Eric Schmid and company for this high-powered Bearcats attack? I think it's going to be a fun game. I think we're in for a really tight one.
Oh yeah.
As far as percentage chance, I will give. It's not like 10%. I think it's like 40%. I think Sam Houston is an understandable favorite in this one, but I think it's closer than even like there's been some odds makers have installed Sam Houston's like a 14-point favorite. I think that's overcooking it. I think this game's close. I think Sam Houston wins. I think this game is close. I'm going to give SFA about a 40% chance of winning the Battle of the Piney Woods.
I like it.
What's next, Pickle?
Up next, we go to some Conference USA action here. Old Dominion at UTEP, 8 p.m. on Saturday. The Miners, what's the key matchup for UTEP to move into 4-1?
Real easy here, okay? Real easy. Stop the run. Stop the run. That's the whole ball game here, okay? Mm-hmm. Old Dominion is one of the very worst passing teams in the nation.
It's bad.
Very, very, very bad at passing the ball. They are extremely reliant on running the ball. If they don't run the ball, they're not going to score. Like, they're not going to move because their passing attack is that bad. They've got, for UTEP, they've got to stop the run. If they stop the run, everything else is going to come away from it. And I know that sounds like an old school, like, coach speak type thing, like, oh, we got to stop the run and run the ball ourselves. It's not that. It's that this matchup really comes down to whether or not Old Dominion's able to run the ball. If they're able to run the ball, then they can give UTEP a lot of trouble. If they are not able to run the ball, they don't really have a plan B.
No.
ODU doesn't have a plan B, like passing the ball. Mm-hmm. So if you are UTEP, #1 priority is gap integrity. It is making sure that you are sound in your run fits and making sure you are able to stop the Lions attack on the ground, or the Monarchs attack rather on the ground.
And go out and win 2 at home.
Well,
that's
huge. Yeah, a night game, another night game at the Sun Bowl. Keep the momentum going, keep the excitement going. Move to 4-1. I think that if you're UTEP, you start out strong, and especially another thing for UTEP. Because the way that ODU is built, they're not built to chase. They're not built to score quickly. They're not built to play from behind. If you jump out to a 10-0 lead, that might be enough to just like hold them at arm's length the rest of the game. So starting fast, which has not been a huge hallmark of UTEP this year, start fast and stop the run, and you'll be 4-1. Hey, that kind of rhymed. What's next?
Some words rhyme. Up next, we've got a top 25 matchup. Number 21, Baylor, taking on number 19, Oklahoma State, 6 p.m. on Saturday. Which undefeated team are you buying, the Bears or the Cowboys?
And this is kind of the big question in this one, because I think both these teams are kind of nationally ranked because someone has to be ranked. Yes. I mean that. I don't mean that disrespectfully. They're both 4-0, like they're both undefeated. But, like, I don't know if anybody's necessarily going gaga over either of these teams, and they're just like, oh, you're 4-1, we'll rank you, right? And I think that especially holds true for Oklahoma State, who doesn't really have a signature win. I mean, they beat Boise State, but this is not that vintage Boise State team. No. I think Spencer Sanders has regressed significantly at the quarterback spot. They are very much reliant on playing low-scoring slugfests, and their defense has stepped up in a big way. For Baylor, they have the best win of the bunch, beating Iowa State last week, but they don't have, let's be real. Their one road win was on the road at Texas State. That is a win that has not aged well, right? They struggled with Texas State. Now they're growing as the season has gone on. This is a really important test to prove that you can go on the road and beat what we think is a quality team. But I also think that I think there's a chance, I'm going to make some headlines here. I think there's a chance Oklahoma State's just a fraud. Like, I think there's a chance that Oklahoma State's not actually all that good, and that they're just a product of some savvy scheduling. I don't think they're getting good quarterback play. I think that defense hasn't necessarily been tested in a way that they may be tested this week against that kind of wide zone scheme from Baylor that is picking up steam. So if I'm buying one of them, I'm buying Baylor. But we'll certainly
this is a data game where you finally get some actual data on both of these teams.
We'll find out in a hurry which one of these teams is for real. And maybe it's Oklahoma State. And maybe they go out there and they trounce Baylor, and it looks like, and I look really stupid for saying it. But at the same time, I look at Oklahoma State, and I look at their record, and I'm like, you're the 19th best team in the country? Really?
Like, I don't know about that.
What's next, Pickle?
Up next, another game that needs to be won here for a Texas team. Mississippi State at number 15, Texas A&M, 6 p.m. on Saturday. Will the A&M offense wake up against a mediocre Mississippi defense?
Kind of better, right? This is a Mississippi State defense that I would categorize as fair. I would categorize as in the middle of the pack of the SEC. They're not terrible. Mizzou is a terrible SEC defense. Vanderbilt is a terrible SEC defense.
They're on the upper side of bad.
They're not a terrible SEC defense. They're a fair SEC defense. But, last week I think there's a fair argument that if you want to say Arkansas is a good SEC defense, I think there's an argument for that. And if you want to give some credit to them that they bully-balled, A&M's offense, that's fair. A&M probably better wake up in this one. Like, this offense needs to prove that they can move the ball against a team that is in their weight class, right? Mm-hmm. Because right now, they have the offense has looked good basically in 2 games, both against G5 opponents, both of them at home. Kent State and then they beat, who was the other team? New Mexico, right? In their 2 games against teams that I get that, let's just put it this way. In their 2 games against Power 5 opponents, the offense has looked terrible. The offense has scored, I think, a grand total of 20 points in 2 games. Yep, not going to cut it. Not going to cut it. So the offense better wake up. And this is the opportunity to do it against a defense that is not good. Like, they're fair, and they're much better defenses down the road. So if A&M's serious about contending in the SEC West, they got to wake up in this one, and I think you need to see some growth from Zach Calzada. I think they got to get that running game going because the middle of that offensive line is struggling. They're riding the struggle bus right now.
And if they can't compete against Arkansas last week and Mississippi State, then you don't even want to see the murder that's going to happen when Alabama comes.
We really start asking questions about next week when Alabama rolls into town. We really start asking questions. What's next, Pickle?
Up next, how about another Conference USA matchup? Southern Miss at Rice, 5:30 on Saturday. Is there suddenly a reason for concern about Rice's defense? Yes.
So
last week
was very concerning. They got torched by Texas Southern,
a program that doesn't win.
That hasn't won a game since 2018. Now, again, there is a. They kind of surprised everybody by rolling our buddy Andrew Body out there to start. Texas Southern did. And he looked great. He threw for over 300 yards and stuff like that. For all the talk we've had about Rice, the concerns have been on the offensive side, especially at quarterback, right? I guess it's just kind of like you plug one leak, you see another leak, because maybe they figured out the quarterback spot. Maybe Jake Constantine is the guy at the quarterback spot. But now they've got concerns on the defense because they got torched last week. Now, I think, again, a charitable reading would be that you look at that they were not game planned for Andrew Body, and they got surprised. And they were not able to adjust, and they ended up giving up a bunch of yards and a bunch of points. They won. Southern Miss is a bad offense. They should not be, and they're not a dynamic offense. They're not an offense that's changing, that's rolling out a lot of complex schemes. Rice needs to. This is a retrenching game for the Rice defense, and I think maybe a proof of concept game for Jake Constantine in this Rice offense. So a lot to learn here. Is there suddenly reason for concern? I'm holding off for now. I'm willing to give them an excuse for last week because of the changing quarterback situation. But if they don't this week, if they start getting torched by the Golden Eagles, then there's big reason for concern. What's next, Pickle?
Up next, we're sticking with Conference USA here, but UNLV at UTSA, 5 p.m. on Saturday. This one on ESPN Plus. Make a play on the line. UTSA is favored by 21.
So we're bringing back free money.
No, actually, we're not.
This is a tough line.
It is.
Because, first of all, it's obviously around, 42-21 is a butt kicking that's also a push, right? So you're asking them to go out there and trounce UNLV. Now UNLV is bad. UNLV is V bad. They are probably they're one of the worst teams out there in the Mountain West. This is a really intriguing line, but UTSA is coming home. They're coming off of a really resounding and I think like uplifting win that's going to have the Alamo Dome rocking at 5 o'clock, and 5 o'clock gives enough time for people to get rowdy before the game. The only question, like UTSA is going to win, the only question for me is how long they keep their foot on the gas. You know what I mean? If they were to play 4 quarters, full throttle, keep your starters in the whole time, I'd feel very comfortable with UTSA minus 21. For now, I'm going to take UNLV plus 21. It's hard to ask a team to beat a team by more than 3 touchdowns. So I'm going to get UNLV plus 21. I just think that's just asking a lot of a team that's probably going to get up by 28 points and then pull everybody.
Yeah, especially because it's not a conference game. You're going to take Sincere McCormick probably shouldn't be in until the end of the fourth quarter.
This strikes me as a game that is 38-10 in the third quarter, and then they pull their starters, and this game ends 38-24.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so as a result, it ends like that. So I'm going to go UNLV plus 21. Not because I don't think UTSA is the better team. They're going to win this game, but I think that just because of the breadth of the line. What's next?
Up next, South Florida at SMU, 3 p.m. on a Saturday. So, you think SMU planting the flag at TCU?
So that's the big topic of conversation. And look, we should mention, like, SMU is playing South Florida. South Florida is very bad, and SMU should not have a problem with this. This should not be an interesting game. Unless you're an SMU fan, then watch it, have fun, enjoy yourself. But I don't perceive this being an interesting game. And so as a result, we figure we're talking about the big controversy. So TCU coach Gary Patterson is more or less like accused SMU of pre-planning and going out there and starting a fracas and knowing what they were going to do by going out there and planting the flag. Do I think they pre-planned it? I don't know. I don't know if it was like a whole, like, let's have a meeting about it, but I'm sure that, like, it was in the back of people's minds of saying as the game was winding down, it was clear SMU was going to beat TCU for the skillet. I think it was clear, like, somebody was probably had an idea of, like, I'm going to go grab that flag and plant it at midfield. Like, was it pre-planned? I don't know. But I think it was something that, like, it didn't spawn out of nowhere. I think everybody's probably got to cool out. I think that everybody's a little bit, like, upset. Like, everyone's a little bit in their feelings about a rivalry game. I don't know. I think it's fun whenever there's that kind of passion in a rivalry. So
especially when it was amped up before the game.
Yeah, because of all the trash talking.
Yeah.
Look, I think SMU won the game. I think that they if you win the game, you get to do what you want. If you don't want to play a flag in midfield, beat them. What's next, Pickle?
Up next, we've got Tech at West Virginia, a Big 12 matchup on Saturday at 2:30. How does Tech's offense change with Henry Colombi in at quarterback? Tyler Shuck, of course, getting injured.
Yeah, Tyler Shuck out until at least November, middle of November, with a broken collarbone. And so we are matriculating over to Henry Colombi, taking over at the quarterback spot. Henry Colombi is a different quarterback than Tyler Shuck. I think he's got a bigger arm in the sense that I think they're going to be able to stretch the field a little bit longer, or a little bit farther. The question for them is going to be, do they have the receivers like Eric Nzukanma and stuff like that to be able to stretch the field? West Virginia's defense looked awful good last week against Spencer Rattler, who may be overrated, and that Oklahoma team who may be overrated. But they, this is going to be different. And for Henry Colombi, who I think looked pretty good when he came in against Texas last week. Obviously, a lot of that was in garbage time, but they were able to stretch the field a little bit. And so that's going to be a big question. Are they able to stretch the field? Now, with Colombi, you are also sacrificing a little bit of the accuracy and a little bit of the sure, like, knowing where the ball is going. Colombi can get a little bit loose with the football. Now, Shuck could too. So I think maybe you're adding a little bit of depth, deep shot potential to this offense by bringing in Colombi.
But after you get a 70 burger hung on you, I feel like anything can.
You just got to have that. I mean, look, the offense wasn't the problem last week.
No,
the offense wasn't the problem last week, especially after Colombi came in. So I think that hopefully, we'll see if they can bounce back on the road in Morgantown. What's next, Pickle?
Up next, sticking with the Big 12 here, Texas at TCU, 11 a.m. on a Saturday, as TCU's defense actually bad, or is it just off to a poor start?
Yeah, and that's kind of that's the $64,000 question for TCU, because I do think that this offense is pretty good. I think that Max Duggan and Zach Evans and the guys that they've got,
They can do what they need
They
to
can
do.
I think there's a fair argument that this is the second best offense TCU's had, the first being under Trevon Boykin. I think this offense is good, but their defense got absolutely taken apart last week. And it got taken apart by Cal as well. Now I think that they are missing Ardarius Washington and Trevon Moehrig in the backfield at the secondary spots, and I think that they're going through some real-time growing pains at the safety spot. Can they get better? Yeah, and I think that Gary Patterson's going to coach them up. We'll find out this week, because this is a hot Texas offense that's coming off of really feeling very good against Tech. They've got to figure it out. And so for TCU, we'll really find out this week, because if they go out and they give up 56 to Texas, then I think we have our answer.
And
now, they can still grow over the course of the season, but the season may be lost by then.
And it's very telling with TCU when they don't have a good defense. Historically, the whole program, it just does not excel.
They're a defense-first program.
Gary Patterson is defense.
If they have a good defense, they're a contender. If they have a mediocre to poor defense, they are not a contender. That's the bottom line of it. What's next, Pickle?
And finally, we go Houston at Tulsa. This one a Friday night game at 6:30. Can Houston be an AAC contender if the passing offense is only okay?
And that's kind of where we're at now. I think that through the course of the first few weeks of the season, we've found that the passing attack for Houston is kind of average. It's okay. Like, it's not great. And that's kind of in stark contrast to what it's been traditionally over the course of Houston's history, and also under Dana Holgorsen. They've been a more aggressive passing team. Now, they can run the ball, and they're running the ball actually relatively effectively. The question is that going to be enough? I don't think so. I don't think, it depends on, if they're going to be an AAC contender. I think no. I think eventually you're going to have to get that offense, that passing attack, from a mediocre with Clayton Tune and company, from mediocre to above average. That's where it's got to be. It's got to be pretty good. You got to have a pretty good passing attack to contend in the AAC. But we'll kind of find out, right? They go on the road to Tulsa. Tulsa's a favorite in this game. Tulsa's playing pretty well. Remember, Tulsa went to Ohio State and gave them a lot of trouble. This is a really intriguing matchup, and a Tulsa defense that can give people trouble, especially running the ball. So I think that for Clayton Tune and company, the passing attack has got to wake up in this one. Really intriguing matchup on a Friday night tomorrow on ESPN, and I'm very intrigued to see what we see from this passing attack, because I do believe that Houston has got to get more than they're getting now out of Clayton Tune and company if they're going to be a true contender for an AAC, for any sort of contention in the AAC. So there it is, our burning questions for week 5 of the college football season. We'll answer these on Tuesday.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.